All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good to have you here. Hello, Dawid and Rachel and Alexandra, Thomas. Good to have you all here. Marco, my name is Paul Tranny, and we're going to get this week started off right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Always curious as to where you're from and all that good stuff. Hopefully you can see me okay and hear me all right. Got a little Andrew Apple Pie playing in the background. We're going to dive into creating visual assets in Adobe XD specifically. So we're going to get into some more of these nitty-gritty details, which will be really fun. But again, this is a getting started stream, so this is for everyone. I'll be monitoring chat. I see you, Faraday and Natalie. If you can go over to behance.net/live, that would be fantastic, David, because I have two chats going and really I can only monitor one. We want you on Behance because also on Behance we have a couple things going on this week that I want to tell you all about, if that works for you. Axel, you are always too kind. Can I put you in my pocket and take you with me everywhere, because you're always so encouraging and very kind. So this is essentially what's going on this week. We have basically UX UI week this week. This is yeah, that is correct. We have Tuesday to Thursday starting at 9 a.m. and then we go to about 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So hopefully that works for you. Jeanette, if you're in Montana, the schedule hopefully works out all right. Hopefully you just kind of have this on. Max in Seattle, good to have you as well. Again, Pacific time works for you, but we're going to have a really special thing going on this week. There's a creative challenge going on at 9 a.m. that we're going to talk about for the first 30 minutes, which will be really cool. We're going to kick that off with Mark Risen and then Alyssa Suzanne. We have Megan Fisher and Zachary Nelson with myself. Pretty much full day, so it'll be good. Nigeria in the house, good to have you here. Love to see people see the international community joining me today. But I kind of want to dive into a little bit of their work, and then I'll dive into what we're going to do today just for fun, right? Because we can. Did everybody have a wonderful weekend? I hope so. Hopefully you had a fun, wonderful, maybe relaxing weekend, but essentially I'm going to show you a couple things here. Again, let me just share my screen. You can see it right here. You could always click on the schedule tab right here and you can kind of get the schedule on what's going on, and you can see everything that I just showed you, and you can kind of dive into their work. So we can take a look at Alyssa Suzanne's work, which is going to be really fantastic. She's going to be with us this week. Really cool stuff, of course, using those gradients, which I so love. So nice. And next up we have, sure enough, wait for it, Megan Fisher. Altastic. She is altastic. So, yes, thank you, Axel. Hopefully everybody had a good Mother's Day, right? Did you have a good Mother's Day? Did you at least call your mom? If not, send her flowers or spend time with her, because that's the one thing I always tell people to do on the stream, is to call their mom. So that was yesterday. So yeah. I don't know if it's an international holiday, Axel. I don't know. So, anyways, we can dive into Megan Fisher's work. Again, she's a writer, speaker. She does a lot of work, and you can kind of dive in and see her work. But I'm just kind of bragging about these people. Still following those trends of sort of these gradients you can see right here. Which that's a fun little gradient to, it's a tricky gradient to pull off. And then we also have Zachary Nelson is going to be with me as well. And he does a lot of stuff because he's actually out of Salt Lake City and he's creative director for Shelby Company. So does a lot of work. You can kind of dive in and see his agency UI kit. So he's kind of gotten into sort of creating icons, buttons, all sorts of things. So that's kind of what's happening. And this leads right into what I'm going to cover today, which is all about creating assets, sort of designing assets, creating them not only in XD, but also bringing them from other sources. So I'm going to throw a lot of resources at you. Hopefully that works for you. Vusi from South Africa, and this will be good. So Kimberly, how are you doing today? Share this with your friends. Tell them about us. Let's make it a party. Let's have some fun, and let's get this party started with these graphics right here. Essentially going to be, boom, sweet. Talking about creating graphics, creating and editing shapes, really easy. adding and modifying text, how to do all that, sort of just like mastering the creation process of assets on using Adobe XD, okay? And then also importing assets, because we realize, Axel, that you're probably creating things or have things in Illustrator or Photoshop, or you have ping files or whatever. Show you how easy to bring all that is. Zilla's Day, what's up, Rob Zilla? How you doing, man? Good to see you, my friend. Yes. So, always want to know how your 3D explorations are happening, Rob. If you're learning Cinema 4D, but if you're like me, you're probably dabbling in many different apps, and that's why this morning is really good. So, excuse me. Let's kind of dive into this, and in fact, let's just I can kind of open what I'm going to work on or deal with. And here's just a quick example, just so you can see. I'll switch my screen. You can see here is, you know, some assets that I've created in Adobe XD. We can see sort of the published link on the right-hand side. Some of these things were created in XD. Some of them were imported, but it's all, again, it's going to be really straightforward for you, right? And I'm going to kind of talk about, you know, even some other assets that you can get from other places. You don't have to make everything from scratch. All right. Whoa, Marco, you need to go home. Marco's just leaving work right now, but you know what? If you have a phone, you can still watch us. Again, behance.net/live is what we're doing. And let's get this party started. So, yeah, let's save that. I do have these assets available and be happy to give them to you if you're interested. But let's dive into this. Oh, you like the heart placeholder logo you created? Axel, that's a good call. Like, actually, you know, I think we could even create that if you want today. Again, this is just sort of diving in, showing you how to create in XD, right? So again, you launch XD, and this is a beginner stream, so I don't want to lose anyone, but essentially I just created a new document. And it is just an untitled iPhone app. I could always change that. In fact, I can change the background color. Simple enough. That's what I typically do, because you know what? I can't stand working on white, right? And Vusi and Mark and Alexandra, I don't know if you work with a dark interface or light interface. I always kind of want to hear what you're used to working in. But essentially here I have just sort of this new page, this new document. And I'm going to start creating with it. You guessed it, you can kind of create pretty easily. I can kind of drag out sort of a nav bar as I'm doing right now. Just using, you can see right over here, we have the rectangle tool. Guess what? You hit R, you have it right there. Ellipse is going to be E, otherwise known as a circle. And then we can kind of dive into these other tools. But all of these are really straightforward to use. So, you know, if I'm using a rectangle, guess what? I've drawn out a rectangle. And I get the properties for it off to on the, you can see right over here on the right side. Okay, in fact, I will shrink this down so we have all this nice space to work in. Zoop. Yeah, see? Oh, look at that, it's a pre-release build. What is that? Intrigue. Maybe later. All right, so we have fill colors, border. You get the idea. We want to change the fill. We can click on that, change the fill to something else if we want to. You know, we can go kind of dark, or we can go to this sort of like, you know, medium, sort of purplish color if I want to, and I can add that as a color swatch right there, okay? Another thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the border. Sure, I can give it a different border color, but I'm gonna actually turn that off just like that. And again, this could be the bar that I'm gonna use later on. But what I can also do is I'm going to drag something out. In fact, notice how I get alignment options. I can click and drag, and just like in Illustrator and Photoshop and other apps, if I hold down the Alt key, it will drag from the center to make this square from the center, and the Shift key will obviously make it a perfect square. Ooh, a 20-stop gradient. Is that a challenge? Because I will accept that challenge. It would just take a little while because there would be 20 stops. Valterra uses a dark interface. I use dark interface as well. Alexander uses a dark interface. This is an informal poll. I always like to hear I use dark interfaces all the time. So for any shape that you've drawn, you're going to get these little control points, just like in Illustrator, right? So I can say, hey, you know what, let's round these corners, zoop, and we can sort of round that out. And obviously you can see rounded corners. We can take something that was once a square and make it a circle. Also, what I can do is I can hold down the Alt key, okay, and I can click and drag out one side. And then all of a sudden I have this point, okay? And then I can always rotate it, right? You get the idea. I could also just as easily, if I want to rotate a perfect 180 or whatever coordinates I want, I have those all in my properties panel. Why, thank you, Valtaire. Does my hair look all right? As I mess it up, sorry. Sarah, your hair is looking really good today too, I must say. Just shout out. Dark interface is exactly right. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so and just like Axel challenged me to make, essentially was like, hey, you know, why don't you make that heart icon? I can actually edit the individual points for any shape that I've drawn, whether it's a square or a circle. If you just double click, you can now access those points. And let me just change, I apologize, I'm going to change the background to a different color so we can see this a little better. All right, we're going with a, I don't know what color you'd even call that, but hopefully you can see these blue lines right here. But if I double click on this, I now have access to all these individual points as well. See, I have those Bezier points that I can now access, but I can sort of select this bottom part and I can pull that down further if I want to. I can see this point right here, right? And I can start to adjust that, maybe move it out and curve it out like that. And I can start to refine this further, always getting my guides. Since I'm making this sort of like map icon, right? So anything you draw, you can access those Bezier points. Yeah, it's huge, man. Looks like Valtaire didn't know that. It's huge. It's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Here's another thing that I love. Let me turn off the border. You know, I always look at sort of what one app has over the other. I'm a big time Illustrator user and I want Illustrator to have this, right? So essentially what I want to do is I want to punch a hole in it. So I'm going to take a circle, you know, draw that out right here. Okay, so now I have this sort of blue circle and then this point, this object beneath it. Now, if I want to knock a hole out of it, I can have those boolean operations in the upper right. You can see right here. I can add, subtract, you know, intersect, divide, all that fun stuff. In this case, I want to subtract the front from the back. Boom, done, done. You guessed it. This is what I love about this, Axel and Vusi. Vusi, am I saying that correctly? I can double click on this and I have access to those individual points. But not only that, if I happen to do this, look, I can move that. I can take a chunk out of it just like that, right? So I can come in here and say, hey, you know what? I want to make a moon. Boom, 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 boom. And bam, there you have your crescent moon off to the side. Or you have your sort of pin map icon right here. And again, the great thing is this is non-destructive is what I'm trying to say. Right over here, see, look, I have access to that circle. Can you see that? I'm still not happy with the background color. All these shortcuts work the same. Zip, there we go. I can't do white. I can't do pure white. But we can see right here, now I can see as I double click, I have access to those circles, and that's what I think is pretty cool. So we can change it from like, you know, sort of a half moon to a full-on crescent moon, whatever you want to do, and we can get creative with it. So that's what I like about XD that actually Illustrator doesn't have, because it is beyond Pathfinder, Axel, right? Because you still have access to those paths, right? So I can come in here and change that, and that's what I'm getting at, okay? Just double click, have access to it, move it over. Just like here, I want to make this circle a little smaller. I can come in here, double click it, access that circle. I get those same control points just like that. Okay, so that's essentially creating in XD. I can just hold down the Option key and drag, and sure enough, there we have this duplicate shape. And I can have some fun with it. Let's make this one red. Let's, or actually even more of a pinkish. And then I want to bring this one in front because as you're creating, you know, you're going to want to do some layering, right? Sort of bring this in front, bring this one behind because I'm going to be making a heart. Let's kind of rotate that like so. How do you deal with the sort of the stacking of these shapes? Sure enough, you can right click and you can do all this jazz, bring front, you know, push back, all that fun stuff. I typically use the layers panel. The reason I use this layers panel, you can see it open right down here and it's kind of behind my head. Hopefully you can see that right down there. But I usually use that because it actually shows me right up here what those individual elements are. And I can actually see everything on my current artboard, which is nice. So, so right in here, I can say map icon, right? And I can select this and I can say, okay, this is the left side, you know, rename them. But more importantly, I can take this left side and move it beneath the map icon. And I can eventually make like a heart, which is what I'm trying to do. So give me time, rotating it, just tweaking this ever so slightly. Like that, okay? So there we have our fun heart. Okay, everything's good? Good. Janet says, yeah, XD is intuitive and awesome. Good to hear. And she's won some socks. Don't worry, this week we will have giveaways, and essentially we have a full week. Let me just kind of review the schedule with you. Essentially starting 9 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, we're back to our normal schedule. Last week was 99U. There's obviously those sessions on demand that you can check out those replays later. All right. But yeah, super cool. And again, all I'm doing is creating and editing shapes, and then I'll get into modifying text in XD. Ooh, it could also be a clover. I love where your head's at. You know, again, just like taking a number of assets, you know, doing whatever you want with them. On this note, and I can run with that if we want. Taking these items, I actually want to group them together because they're basically going to be, I'm going to consider them my logo now, okay? So what I do, I select these both, and sure enough, I could right click, and I'm just showing you that it's basically your Command G if you're on Mac, Control G if you're on a PC, and that's all you need to do. So group them just like you would in Illustrator. Boom, done, right? What does it do right over here? It's a group. Guess what? Right in here. I could twirl that open. Can you see that? Can you see it? Can you feel it? Do you love it? I hope so. Make it bigger. There we go. So again, we see the group, and then we see those individual items that I've labeled. But what I can do with this group is I'm going to call it logo. Boom. Done and done. Right? There's my fancy logo, and I can kind of shrink it down. A little crescent moon. Different items, okay? So what you're gonna want to do with this, Alexandra, yes, and Axel, is you're gonna probably with like a logo, and as you start building out multiple screens, so I'll just duplicate that screen, right? As you have more graphics and different screens, you're not gonna want to have multiple copies of an item. If you do, you will want to have multiple copies, but you don't want to have copies. You actually want to make sure that they are assets. So right behind my head, and let me move this up a little more, so you can see that right over here, these two fancy circles behind my head, you can see right there. This will open up the assets panel. Okay, so from here, what I can do is I can say, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and add a symbol to my asset panel for the logo. Boom, there it is. Notice how it turns it green, and then I can sort of drag that over here and place it, you know, right there or whatever. So this is, I'm glad everybody's watching because oh, Siobhan, good to have you here. One thing you can't do is, these are both instances of this symbol asset, right? So I can't really resize it, which is kind of a problem, whatever. If I want to resize it, what I can always do is I can always, you can see right down here, ungroup symbol. So I can always break it apart if I want to. So ungroup, and now it's its individual elements. Maybe at this point I want to scale it down. Maybe I want this to be, you know, again, Oops, I always try to drag it. Shame on me. Clicking right over here, I can have maybe a smaller one and then the large one, but you can see these two different icons, and then I can use them as much as I want, right? Yeah, symbols are great. By the way, like, so this is, I'm going to take it to the next level. You guys excited about this? Sarah, do you know about this? I want to show you this. So I'm going to dive into sort of like adding some text. And since we're kind of going with this, whatever. I'm actually just kind of going to dive into text real fast. Obscure. We'll call it, this is the name of our app. It's called Obscura, right? So we're finding obscure things in various cities, right? So we have our properties off to the side. You can see those right there. I'm going to center this text. I probably need to change the color to like a white, for instance, just to make it look good. We can see it looks good right there. I get this control point right down here, and then I can just like resize this. And I can change the font right over here. So I can just sort of select that text, and then I'll kind of click through and find something that I want to go with. Ooh, that's cool. That's pretty cool. Look at that. Kind of like that. Right, so there's my text, which is awesome, right? Let's dive into, again, what I have for my text options is going to be over here in my properties panel. We can see we have appearance fill, all that good stuff, and some settings. And what I want to show you really fast is we have some new things. We have, of course, underline is fairly new. What I just made is called point text. And then I can have sort of like more of like an area text or paragraph text is the next option. Jeanette Connolly, is there a way to distinguish the assets panel so one asset is the small one? No, there isn't. That is a request, by the way, because yes, that's a good point. Like, which one is which? Which one is the menu icon and which one's my title icon, right? And there currently like isn't a way other than if you made a visual reference, but that is something that we're actually looking at. What we did recently add right in here, so what I could do is I could search assets and I can say logo, and it will serve up the one that's called logo. So for this second one right here, what I can do is I can highlight it on the canvas if I want to. Click, and we can see it's right here. Same thing for this one, highlight it on the canvas, and then it's right here, okay? So for this one right here, if I double click on it, let me actually see what I can do right in here. I'm gonna call this menu logo. So that's what I'm calling this one. I'm just naming that layer right in here. I'm gonna go back to my assets panel. I'm gonna search in my assets panel for menu, and it will serve up that one. So one way to do this is to essentially name your layers, you know, obviously name your assets, and then you're able to search on those assets to serve up the right one. All right, let's move on. Get rid of that, boom. Let me show you a couple things. Again, I'm just kind of covering type, but then I want to kind of cover a couple more things. IPSU. Boom. Here's my lorem ipsum. I'm going to change this text, of course, this intro inline. Do you like this font, by the way? Maybe you don't like it, huh? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I don't know. Maybe we'll just go to SF Pro Display, right? We can go to some very basic text that's going to be 15 point, something like that. Left justified, right? Something like that. And now I have my, what you can see, it is called area text. Okay. So when you're creating assets, I can have an assets panel that has character styles for the title right there, intro inline, and for the body copy right down here. But another thing I wanted to do is you can always change something from area text to point text just by clicking on this button right here, okay? Clicking right here, I just made it point text, area text. And hopefully you're kind of seeing how that's changing, but that's what happens when you sort of toggle between these two, which again, Illustrator does not have that, so yeah, thank you so much. I like the, Sarah, is there a name of an app already called Obscura? There might be. The good thing is this hasn't been through legal yet, so once it's through legal, we'll get all that worked out. The nice thing is what I can do for this text right here is I can actually make this text right here a symbol as well. Boom, put it in there. And then let's put it on this second screen. So if we decide we want to change it to something else, I can come in here and change it. This is really powerful. This is what I want to show you. Super cool. Let me just show you this. I'm so excited. I gotta calm down. Okay, so let's just say we have an icon, and essentially it is a home icon. So let me create a home. Check this out. Again, creating assets. I'm gonna create an icon right here. Really excited about this. And again, we are all about creating assets in Adobe XD. Let's just duplicate that. Let's rotate it. Right? I'm going to dive into the pen tool and even modifying shapes some more. So I double click on this. I get access to these individual points. What if you want to delete a point? You just select it and hit delete. There's no need for like a delete key or anything like that. Right? I can see these options, bringing this down here, sort of connecting them, turning off the fill, increasing the border, because we know this looks really cool when we do something like that. A little thicker. But essentially I'm making this icon right here. One thing XD can currently not do is it can't round the corners. And good morning, Ralph. Good to have you here, my friend. You can't really round corners, so we'll dive into, you know, some of the limitations. And really, XD is not trying to be Illustrator or Photoshop. Okay, so let's move on. So here's my icon, right? And I'm gonna add some text to it. We get it. Home. Centered. Something like this. And that's what I have. So I can make this a symbol. And here it is. The cool thing about this is if I have multiple icons, these are all symbols, right? I can change the text from one to the next. First of all, I can change this in general. All of them will change. But the cool thing is I can have this home text. I can have this text be, you know, about. And this one might be something else like contact, for instance. And they're all still tied back to this same symbol. So the text can be different, but the assets could be the same. So if I decide I want to make this like a diamond, you can see how they all change. I can keep this look consistent, and yet the text can be different. Does that make sense? Oh, thank you, Axel. I try to go fast, but not too fast. So, yeah. So isn't that amazing, by the way? Like you could have one advanced symbol, right? And the text can all be different. Okay, so let's zoom out really fast. One thing I didn't do yet for this, and let's kind of move this text over here and move this content maybe over here as we get this squared away. I want to use the pen tool since we are creating assets in XD. I'm going to draw with the pen tool, right? I'm going to just draw a path, right? I can come over here, click and drag. The pen tool creates these Bezier points as I do a click and drag and kind of go right up here, something like that. If I decide I want to modify a point, it's just a matter of selecting it and manipulating those points. If I want to add one, click right there, I've added that point, and then delete. So you don't need an add anchor point, a remove anchor point, like button, for instance. You just need to hit delete if you want to delete a point. If I want to make a sharp corner right here, what do? Double click, sharp corner. Double click again, curved corner, right? What if I want to modify this point? Like, see, these are currently tied together. How do I change that? Well, again, I can hold down the Option key, right? And now I can modify that one curve and make a more unique curve in that sense, right? So that's how that works. Option key will modify that. We can kind of get this to the way we want it to look. Yeah, it still needs work. I get it. Needs work. Now I'm just designing. But this is what I'm doing again. All created with the pen tool. Haven't touched Illustrator or any other apps. Not to say you won't need them, but chances you are. But the cool thing is, this XD can do a lot of this. So we can do something like that. And let's change the color to, of course, white. And give it a border thickness of about 5. Maybe. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Maybe we'll keep this back as 1. Okay, one thing we haven't dealt with is like gradients and drop shadows and different things, right? We can always do that here in a second, right? What if we want to add a gradient to the background, right? So that's what I want to do now right here. Any asset you select, if I go to the fill right here, I can go beyond simple colors, right? We can go beyond those colors, and I can start to work with gradients right here. Instead of solid color, we can change this to linear gradient. I'm pointing that out because it's kind of hidden, so well, that's kind of the idea. Alexander, oh, you guys are so nice. Thank you for being so kind today. Happy Mother's Day. So check this out. Obviously, I can manipulate this point right here. I'm changing the color. I can add new points. I think Axel said something about a 20-point gradient, which could get really messy. So all I would do is I would do little tweaks to the same gradient. And that's what I'm doing. Notice how I'm working right here, but I don't need to work right here. I can actually work directly on my gradient right over here. So I can grab this and move that up and move it down, like that sort of thing. I can have it come in at an angle from upper right to lower left, like that. And again, I can see that point right there. I can see this gradient right here, and I can change it accordingly. Okay, so let's kind of shift this one more to the pink. Like that. We'll do something like that. Cool. And there we have our fancy gradients. Sadhaya, how you doing? Yes, tips with text file. I'll be happy to answer questions. Again, as we get into assets, I can see I have some text here, for instance, and I think this is what you're talking about. Anytime you maybe have a text file, and I'll just jump out here and grab one, since you did mention it. Give me 1 second. I'm just looking for a simple text file. So here's a TXT file. I could take a text file and drop it right there. Okay, the reason it changed, see, I'm glad this happened. It changed that, but look, it's saying, hey, you know what? I'm actually point text. That's why I'm super long. So why did you do that? I didn't want to do that. I want to make it area text. Clicking area text gives me this border right here. I can grab the ends and bring it on in just like that. But that's all I need to do if I want to bring in text. You can see it right here. I'm going to drop in another one. You can watch that text change again, and then again, and again. Cool? Yeah, Sadhaya, this is a logo you've already seen. Okay, so you've already seen this logo. Again, I was just kind of introducing people to creating assets. We can actually bring in some other assets. Let's do that, right? Let's do that. Before I go beyond what I'm making, Again, I just want to kind of make sure I have my assets squared away, right? Maybe I want to use this gradient other places. I can save my gradient right over here in my assets panel. So I'll click right there, boom. Here are all my gradients that or my colors that I've saved. So I can go to this iPhone right here, click right here, and now I've sort of added it to that page. It doesn't do it from the same angle, but it brings it in, you know? Same thing for, obviously, if I want to change the text color, I can change the text color, right? Cool, so I've saved those colors. Anytime I want to tweak this, since I've added that gradient across both of these, I can select Edit, right-click, select Edit, right? And right in here, I can now change that, and I can change it across, you know, wherever it's being used. So I can shift this more to a more bright pink if I want to. But I'm doing that across everywhere it's being used, which is really cool, right? So again, amp that up, something like that. You get the idea. And we're just having fun with these gradients now. Okay, so let's move on. Sadhaya, oh, do you not love this, by the way? These are global colors right over here. That's why you want to use these. You want to make these global colors, right? So anytime you use these colors, they'll actually change everywhere, okay? When you're using colors over here, for example, these are not global colors. You can still use them, they're just not global colors. So many tips I want to show you, so many tips. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Somebody asked, yeah, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna save this file. Obscura. And again, what we're covering this week is it's all about XD. Just to remind you, we have a creative challenge tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Alyssa, Megan, Zachary, fantastic people. You can go ahead and check the schedule tab for them. Hopefully you're joining me on behance.net/live. Also, this is my agenda, what I'm working through. Adding, modifying text, creating and editing shapes. I've done all of that. I've gotten into colors and all that stuff. But I'm going to dive into sort of like using assets from other places. And I'm going to show you some awesome resources too. So hopefully you like this, right? So check this out. Free stuff. I'm going to show you where to get free stuff. Everybody loves free stuff. Let me show you directly from Adobe Creative Cloud desktop app. Okay, so hopefully you've updated XD, which I can talk about those new features. But essentially, right over here under assets, under assets, you can go to market. And you saw me create just a simple home icon. Well, I don't really necessarily need to. I can come in here to market and search home. As I've searched home, I can get all of these various assets that I might consider using, okay? I can see this, these are actually pretty straightforward. But maybe if I want to use this one right here, I can save it, and I can save it to my Creative Cloud library, okay? In this case, I already have one called XD, okay? So that's where I'm saving that to. It's being saved to XD. It's syncing right now. Done, done. I can go to File, Open CC Libraries, opening up XD, and sure enough, there's the icon, and I can drop it in and start to use it. Okay, so that's one place to get assets. Massimiliano is asking about, you know, how can you mirror a shape? Oh man, I've had that happen before. So let's just take this, let's ungroup. So essentially, if you grab it on this side, I'm going to be aware of the size because the size is, you know, 147 by 58. Let me just try this because I'm going to go negative 147 and that does not work. I was hoping it would. But if I grab that and flip it over, I would have to make that 147 like that. Just remember that number, but you just grab an edge and flip it. There's no mirror capability currently. All right. So let's move on. Let's kind of work in Illustrator now, for instance. Just to keep it simple, here I am in Adobe Illustrator. I can select this simple cityscape. I can copy it, anything from Illustrator, and bring in here and paste it in, paste it right here, boom. And now I have my cityscape that I can use. It's no longer linked, but it is editable. Just gonna move that up. Double click, and you can see all these individual points I can now edit, as you can see, right? So if I want to make this in taller, you get the idea. Okay, so that's one thing we could do. Copy and paste is we're gonna work from Illustrator. Let's go beyond that. Let me show you some other assets. In Illustrator, if you go to File, New, and if you're Creative Cloud, all those assets, not all those assets, Coyote, not all those assets in the Creative Cloud market are vector, but that's currently what I searched on. So you can see some will be, some won't be. If I do, say, for instance, placeholder graphics, and just to kind of give you an idea of what's in here, let's clear this out. Let's just go to the featured items. You can see there's patterns, there's placeholder graphics. As I scroll down, more patterns. Here's a vector or raster image, but it kind of runs the gamut. And if you really wanted to see, you can see right in here, you can actually sort by category. So you can go placement items, user interface items, icons, patterns, brushes. So that's everything that you have. Cool. I'm not sure, we don't talk about this much. So, which always makes me wonder, it's like, why don't we talk about this? Because this is free stuff. Another place that's free stuff, if you go to a File, New, and if you have the latest version of Illustrator, you can go into, say, the mobile tab right here, and you can see all these individual assets that you can use from Illustrator. So I can see that there's this UI icon set that I might want to use, or a circular one as well. So if I decide I want to use the UI icon set, just double click, opens it. This is going to work out really well. We have our forward and back buttons, you know, that I can select and start using, you know. Selecting both of these, copy, paste into XD, you get the idea. Easy to work with, and that's where you can find some great assets, okay? Just go File, New, and they're right here. Let me know if you have any questions there. So yeah, Axel, yeah. Oh yeah, colors. Thank you so much for posting that. Axel's talking about using color.adobe.com. So you could bring in colors that way and everything. So this is good. Again, I think this is pretty awesome to have all these assets right in here that are ready to go. So I can decide I can use this elegant logo set. For instance, maybe I want to use something in here, and all I need to do is copy and paste and bring it in, okay? As I work on this, this is typically what I would do. Come in here, you know, for this asset, I'm thinking, okay, this would be pretty cool for my Obscura. And this will be like, let's do Tokyo. So maybe you can have the Obscura app for Tokyo or whatever. But basically I've created this asset, and I can use my CC library right over here to save it too. So this is typically what I will do. And again, you can just create new library. This is called XD. And I can just drag and drop that right in there. Right? And this can be called, you know, logo. And that's typically what I do. Start to like take different icons or create different icons and start to bring them into my particular app. Right over here. Nice little square. Let's ungroup that. You know, taking this asset, dropping it in here. You get the idea. All I'm doing is just loading this up. This tracking icon. You get the idea. Awesome. Ooh. Sweet. Okay, so I got these from Adobe Stock, by the way. So you can go to stock.adobe.com. You can actually search right in here. Instead of like creating your own icons or using those free ones, you can even just do a search right in here for Adobe Stock is what I'm changing that to. And right here, I can do travel. Searching on travel, vectors in this case, and I can see sort of this gorgeous asset right here. From there, I can actually decide to use that or decide to use something like this. I love these stamps, for instance. And what I can do is I can license it directly from this panel, or I can just download basically a placeholder image. And in this case, it's going to use my license, and it's going to be ready for me anytime. Let's dive into it. Oh, unless you have issues and still need to get that set up. But nonetheless, that should be working now. I'm actually syncing just a placeholder image, and that's going to be in that same library. You get the idea. Let's move on. I'm going to show you the most exciting thing. Oh, geez, we are running out of time. I so apologize. What if you want to use Photoshop? Right here I have, you might be familiar with this, and again, maybe you've seen this before, but if you haven't, you need to know about this. So Mel, thank you for joining me. This is huge because if you're using, Photoshop, I can copy and paste assets just like I was in Illustrator, or you can have entire apps laid out in Photoshop just like I have here. So all I'm going to do is just save this, and I'll just save this to my desktop. It's called Sia in this case. It's a different app, something similar though. Here's my Obscura one. I'll close that. And all I need to do, check this out, is I can do a file open, and I can literally open up that PSD that's on my desktop. Are you seeing that? I can literally open it up in XD. You can open up PSDs in XD. In fact, I'll right click, open with XD. So I can take a PSD and open it up in XD. What's going to happen? It's going to take all those assets and convert them automatically. So that's what you need to know. Ralph, anyone, maybe some of you have seen this. If you haven't, you need to know about it. It imports everything. It's no longer linked back to that PSD. Okay, but everything is editable. So as I go in here to this asset, you guessed it, the world is amazing, right? You get the idea. I can change that text. This blur, for instance, back here is going to come in, right? I can make it more of a blur or less of a blur, right? And again, this is all created in a PSD. So Photoshop users are now easily XD users. And hopefully you should know about that, Sarah. Isn't that fantastic, Sarah? Don't you love it? So again, this is all created in Photoshop. Photoshop, XD, boom, done and done. I want to prototype this. I can start to get into prototyping. Selecting prototype, it says, hey, this is what you need to do. Literally take this screen right here, point it to this second screen. That's what I'm doing right here. Pointing it to it. Boom, like that, right? Taking this Japan icon, pointing it to this trip details screen, just like that. So I'm connecting all these screens together. So if I just use XD merely to basically publish on the web, then that's a win for me. So are each of those imported layers? Yes. So Robert, it does bring in all the layers. Good question. I'm going to select this welcome screen. I'm going to go to this layers panel. We could see right over here, right down here. I'm going to put this layers panel right over here. Is that going to work? There we go. We have the XD layers right here, and sure enough, you could see that they're exactly the same. So Photoshop is here, XD is here, they're the same thing. Everything is editable. All right, this is magic, and that's what I like to hear. Oh, good to hear. Height 736. Okay, I need to jump in here. I'm going to change this vertical scrolling. Change the height of that. No, that's not what I want to do. Change the viewport height to 736. Scrolling, vertical, height, 736. Just like that. That's all I'm doing. And then I can publish this out. Publish a prototype in this case. Or even, I'll just play this on my desktop just so you can see it. So we don't have to wait for this link. Clicking here, applying your escape, you can see those links. Everything works. Cool. So if you're not familiar with Adobe XD, you can just literally just use it to review. So check this out. I can publish this out. I'm going to publish this prototype, right? In this case, this is new. We have you can require a password on your public, on a link too, but I'm going to publish out this prototype right now. And I can have clients review it, and I can actually put pins in certain parts of the sort of like the interface or whatever design it is. So even if I'm using XD just to review designs, I think again, it's just a huge time saver. So right here, I publish out this link. Fantastic. I can make a comment. This is great. There's a comment that I'm adding. And then right here, move this up. I don't know what they mean when they say this, but if I pin it on this text, so again, place a pin, oops. Placing a pin right here, boop. And now I know exactly what they're talking about, and I'll submit that, right? So this is how you would review, get feedback, and then you'd eventually come back here, change it, move this up, republish it. And in this case, all you need to do is update. The link will update because you know you probably like misspelled a word like me, probably misspelled something. But as I go back right over here, I'll just refresh this. We can see we moved it up, and therefore we can just say like, you know, done, for instance. And I can even just resolve those comments all together, right? So hopefully you like that. Again, this was all about, as I click over, bringing in assets, using assets in Adobe XD. We created assets, we imported assets, we saw importing PSD files, using CC libraries, just to recap, just so you can see that. The assets that I brought in, let's go to Open CC Libraries. We could see the assets that I brought, oh, sorry. Switching back to my screen, we could see these assets right here that I actually brought in from Illustrator. The cool thing about this, ready for this? This is huge, very important. I will just take this asset, drop it right here. When I'm using assets from Creative Cloud libraries, they're actually linked. So check that out. You can see it says, hey, I'm linked back to this asset right here. So this is fantastic. I can always break that link or unlink graphic, but this is pretty cool because as I change this in Illustrator, and this might not even be you, by the way, this might be somebody else that changes this asset, right? They're going to change this background color to, I don't know, that, you know, red, for instance. In fact, I kind of want to change it to pink. Saving that, we can see it's going to update here. Wait for it. And then we can see right over here, it updates here. And then we'll give it a second, but it will actually update in your interface too. So if you used it in other places, that's awesome. It's not only linked, but again, I can resize this. So I'll duplicate this one. This could be the larger view of this. As I make it larger, doesn't matter. I can use it many different ways. I can maybe adjust the transparency, but essentially that will update in a second, and we would see that happen. So again, CC libraries is really huge. I could always turn around and share that with someone else. So again, Alexander's been helping us out. Axel's been helping out a lot today. Yeah, good to have you here. I can essentially collaborate right here, collaborate with someone else. So I can share this with Axel, and he's able to make those changes to that asset, and it will update within my library. I'm already sharing this with Valerie, misspelled her name, but she has access to this library as one of the designers. And I can always revoke or remove access as well. Cool. Yeah, Comet was an excellent name. Project Comet was the name of Adobe XD before it was Adobe XD. There was also another code name for it even before Comet. I don't know if you know that name, Alexander. Yes, I can open up actually a file that has about 1,000 artboards, and you'd be impressed with its speed. Okay, so hopefully that sums it up. Again, I used Creative Cloud libraries too. Here it is. And most of all, I was creating in Adobe XD. It was all about creating and using assets. I encourage you to use CC libraries. That's what I typically do. That's where everything is. And before it was Project Comment, it was Project Sparkler. That was the name of it. Way back in the day. Ooh, KO'd. Boom, nails it. Sparkler, you were good. I wish I could give out prizes. I would give you something. Yes. So, just kind of winding it down now. Let me know if you have any more questions. I'll review the schedule, but we'll also dive into this. Using assets from UI kits. Let me just switch back over and show you that really fast. Right up here, get UI kits at the very top, get UI kits, and then I can open up the iOS, Google Material, Microsoft Windows, or I can even get more UI kits. So those are always available to you as well. Right here, they're going to be separate files that you open up, but these were created by some fantastic designers. And once you have those, like I do right here, you could use them really any way you want. Let's open up one as I wind down. I only have a couple of minutes left. So boom, here we have it. This is just the dashboard UI kit. As we take a look at it, these are a bunch of assets that we can use. These are just XD files that are ready to be used at your leisure. And what I love about some of these is they're using the assets panel too. So anywhere where they're using a blue or a teal or whatever color, I can edit that and I can change it to my color theme, which happens to be pink. As I change it, you can see that it changed it everywhere. So again, that's UI kits, file, get UI kits, super easy. All right. Project Gutenberg. Okay, if you want more extracts than known books. Okay, good. Thank you so much for that. Really helpful. I'm winding down. And let me know if you have any more questions. My name is Paul Tranny. Thank you so much, Damien, for joining me as well. Oh, you're going not live. Thank you so much for posting that, Damien's going live at 10 a.m. Pacific time to show some sneaks of your May release. Is that on Facebook? Let us know, because we will just meet you there, my friend. That'd be fantastic. And again, to review the schedule beyond that, this is Tuesday through Thursday as well. The new daily challenge will be with XD this week, so you are correct, and you can see the schedule right here starting tomorrow. It's going to be really fun, and you'll find all about it tomorrow. You and me both. So, yes. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Assets for XD cannot be opened in Photoshop, but we know that's a request. But I'm going to let everyone go. Have a wonderful day. I'm just going to keep this schedule up. Join me tomorrow and everyone else, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Join Damien either on YouTube or Facebook. Let us know, and we'll keep an eye out. And we'll just follow you on Twitter as well, because you'll probably post it there. So thanks so much, Sarah and Claire and everyone. I really appreciate you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Have a fantastic week. I can't wait to see you. I consider you guys my friends. Stay in touch, and we will see you soon. Thanks so much.